Hi, welcome to episode 1 of Mortal Musings. I'm your host and commentator, John Waite. This show gets its name from the fact that I have suddenly and very rudely become very much aware of my own mortality. This is because I have recently been given the diagnosis of stage 4 renal transitional cell carcinoma, the odds of surviving of which I have read as something akin to the odds of KU winning the Big 12 in football this year or even next, i.e. not very good. Of course, I have a different opinion. I think my odds of surviving is akin to KU winning men's basketball this year in the Big 12. In other words, a near certainty. Nonetheless, this potential death sentence has caused me to come face to face with my own mortality. And for this, I actually considered it a blessing, because it has forced me to re-examine my life and look at things in a much, much different perspective than I had before. And of course, this has caused me to think not only in terms of my own life, but in terms of philosophy, religion, all sorts of issues that perhaps have always lurked in the background, but now come into a suddenly increasingly sharp focus. In the background, you hear my cats greeting each other. Mortal Musings, then, is my attempt to chronicle this journey that I am going through. In it, I will examine the various issues that I'm confronting, but also my philosophical randerings, religious thoughts, faith, examine the issues of perspective and relevance and all sorts of things that pop into my head as I go through this adventure. I'm doing this for a number of reasons. One, I believe it'll be therapeutic for me to confront these issues because I know that they're lurking back there, and sometimes it's very difficult for one to think about their mortality, and especially the fact that it may be coming a whole lot sooner than we want it to be. But I'm also hoping that I might be able to help others who are also going through this journey or know people who are going through this journey, and perhaps it will help them in coping with it and understanding. And perhaps some of my philosophical randerings may help others too. Who knows? All I can do is share it with you the best that I can. What I don't want this to be is an exercise in self-pity. I hate that. Nor do I want it to be a lengthy detailing of my various pains and agonies. No one wants to hear that. So I'll try not to share that except perhaps to illustrate a point or to keep you abreast of the development as I go through these journeys, or as I see that it may be important information for those who may be preparing to go through the same journey. Since I realized at an early age that I probably was not a Highlander and I wasn't going to live forever, I always thought I wanted to live a very long, long, long life. But then I watched what happened with my dad. My dad recently died this summer. But before that, for the last 4 or 5 years, he has been suffering from dementia with Parkinson's overtures. In fact, he probably had Lewy body syndrome, which is the same thing that afflicted Robin Williams. And watching this great man, this wonderful, wonderful person who always was the healthiest person I knew, to see his mind and then his body just deteriorate to nothing was just a horrible thing to watch. And of course, we cannot know what he was thinking. His memory was shot. He had virtually no short-term memory, and he did have some long-term memory, but it was episodic. And sometimes he drifted in and out of realities. And who can say whether he was happy or not? At some level, since he was living in such a moment, I'm sure, depending on the moment, would determine whether he was happy or not. But it was devastating on us the family to watch him like this and to see him deteriorate. And that made me realize that maybe living such a long, long life was not a gift after all. Because after all, if you don't have the mental capacities to deal with it, and if your longevity is in some way hurting and harming your families, then maybe there is a practical limit to where you want to go. As I say, be careful what you ask for. Of course, I'm not quite ready to check out just yet. In fact, I intend to live as long as I can, as long as I am able to maintain decent cognitive functions and mental capacities, and not being a burden to my family or friends and things like that. Certainly don't want to be a vegetable, and certainly don't want to be like my dad. But I think I have a lot to give, and there's a lot more life out there. So I intend to explore it as fully as I can. And that's part of the process is if you've got this time limit, what do you do with it? You know, how do I maximize this time, this precious, precious time that I have left? Do I indulge myself and go out and do all the things on that bucket list? Do I plow on as though nothing has happened and nothing has changed and try to work a normal life as possible? Neither of those options seem quite right. You know, on the one hand, if you go out there and you're indulging yourself, you're in a way giving up. You're saying, no, I'm not going to make it. So I'm going to be as hedonistic as possible and make every second count. Well, of course, there's some validity to that. You don't want to go out with regrets. But on the other hand, if I pretend nothing's wrong, then I am denying myself the perhaps last opportunities to do things that I really want to do, especially as it relates to family and friends. And there's a lot of places I want to see in this world. There's a lot of people I want to see. For example, I dearly, dearly miss all my English relatives, many of whom I haven't seen in 30 years or almost 40 years. Last trip to England was when I was 21, and I'm 62, and my mother's English, so all my mother's family is in England. So I desperately would like to see them. So I suspect the path will be a combination. I'm going to intend to continue working as much as I can, but forcing myself to take time and smell the roses along the way, and certainly make time for family and friends and travel as time and, here we go, money allows. Obviously, this whole thing puts a huge crimp burden on a family financially. And that's another part of the journey, because, not only does my income likely go down, I'm self-employed, but my wife will be taking a lot of time off work, and not all of that will be compensated time. And then, of course, the medical bills. We're lucky to have decent insurance, but still, you've got several $1,000s in deductibles and then thousands and thousands more in co-insured, much less all the things that the insurance doesn't cover. So the financial aspect of this is very, very crushing, and unfortunately, we're not in greatest financial shape. We're better than we were several months ago, but more on that later. But there's a definite and very strong finite limit. So that'll be also part of this process and this journey. Anyway, I hope that you join me on this journey and that this helps you. I know it's going to help me. And it's comforting just to know that my voice is out there and people can listen to it. And if I can be of help to others, then maybe that's part of the journey as well. So thank you and for joining me on this episode 1. I can't say that there'll be regular updates. I've got a bunch of them in mind for the next few anyway, but there's no schedule. Some of these will be probably 5-minute long, some maybe 10 or 15. Who knows? I'll try to keep them short. But thanks for joining me. I'm John Wade, and welcome to Mortal Musings.